Every single time you go online, you are creating data. But have you ever really stopped to think about what happens to all that information? Well, today we're going to demystify a huge set of rules designed to answer that exact question, the GDPR. All right, let's get right into it. It all boils down to this one question, right? Who's really in the driver's seat when it comes to your personal data? Is it you? Is it the companies you use every day? This is the core problem GDPR was built to solve, by shifting that power right back to you. So, what is this thing exactly? Well, GDPR stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. It's a really big deal, a landmark privacy law that came out of the European Union back on May 25, 2018. And here's the kicker. It's not just for European companies. It actually sets the rules for any company, no matter where they are in the world, if they handle data from people inside the EU. And trust me, companies take this very, very seriously. Why? Because the penalties for messing up are just massive. We're talking fines that can go all the way up to 20 million euros, or 4% of a company's global annual revenue, whichever one is higher. Yeah, that's the kind of number that makes everyone sit up and pay attention. So how does all this actually work in practice? Well, at the very heart of GDPR, there are 7 core principles. You can think of these as the absolute fundamental rules of the road for how to handle someone's personal information. Let's break them down. Probably the best way to get a feel for these is to think about it like you're borrowing a valuable book from a friend. First, you'd be lawful and totally transparent about why you want to borrow it. Second, you'd only use it for that specific reason you mentioned, right? Third, you'd only take the one book you need, not their entire bookshelf. That's data minimization. Fourth, you'd make sure not to spell coffee on it. You'd keep it accurate. Fifth, you'd return it when you're done, not just keep it forever. And finally, you'd keep it safe. It's the exact same logic, just applied to your data. But here's a really important detail. GDPR knows that not all data is created equal. On one hand, you have your basic personal data. Stuff like your name, your email, even your IP address. But on the other hand, you have sensitive personal data. This is the really serious stuff. Information about your race, your political views, your health. And you can probably guess this kind of data gets an even higher, more serious level of protection.
Now, this isn't just some boring rule book for businesses. At its core, GDPR is actually a charter of rights for you. It gives every single one of us specific, concrete rights over our own information. Let's take a look at what those are. First up, you have the right to access. It's pretty simple. It's your right to go to any company and just ask, hey, what information do you have about me and what are you doing with it? And they have to tell you. They have to give you a copy. Next, there's the right to rectification. So let's say you look at your data and realize they've got your address wrong or your name is misspelled. Well, you have the right to tell them to fix it, and they have to do it. And this brings us to one of the most famous and honestly most powerful rights, the right to be forgotten. This means you can actually request that a company completely erases your personal data. And in a lot of cases, like if they just don't need it for the original reason they collected it, they are legally required to hit delete. And get this, they can't just drag their feet on it. When you make a request, like asking to be forgotten, a company generally has just 30 days to respond. That one little time frame creates some real accountability, doesn't it? There are a few other key ones too. You have the right to data portability, which means you can take your data from one place, say a social media site, and move it to another. And there's the right to object, which lets you tell a company to stop using your data for certain things, like for direct marketing. So you can probably see how all of these rules create a pretty big challenge for the modern world. I mean, we live in an age of big data. Companies are constantly using enormous data sets to find patterns and make decisions. And this creates a kind of natural tension with all these principles of privacy. I mean, think about it. On one side, you've got these amazing big data tools that departments from HR to finance absolutely rely on. But they need personal data to work their magic. And the fundamental conflict is that the company doing all that analysis doesn't actually own the data. The individual does. You do. Of course, in the real world, things can and definitely do go wrong. So what happens when there is a data breach? Well, GDPR is very clear about this. The company in charge of the data can't just pretend it didn't happen and hope no one notices. So what are they supposed to do? It's a pretty clear 4-step plan. First, they have to assess the situation, the who, what, when, and where of it all. Second, they have to figure out the source of the breach.
The next logical steps are to recover the data and get their systems back online. And finally, they have to preserve evidence, both for legal reasons and so they can learn from it and improve. At the end of the day, you could boil this entire complex regulation down to one simple golden rule. Don't need it, don't store it. It's really that simple. It's the data minimization principle in a nutshell, and it is the single best piece of advice for any organization out there handling data. And that brings us right to the final question I want to leave you with. You now know the principles, you know your rights, you know what companies are supposed to do. So take a second and think about it. Are the services and companies you interact with every single day really playing by these rules? The power to ask that question is now in your hands.